What? Tom Cruise returns to Warner Brothers Discovery in a deal making original movies and franchise movies? I mean, what's next? James Gunn being in charge of DC? Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram, Movies TV Mad X. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Yes, you're reading the headline right. Tom Cruise returns to Warner Brothers Pictures in a huge deal. It's not an exclusive deal, of course. He can work for other studios. So it's not like the ill-fated J.J. Abrams deal, which was an exclusive deal, a deal that David Zaslav never liked. But you've got to give David Zaslav credit. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the fact that he tries to, shelve movies for tax write-offs, and he does this, and obviously the Turner Classic Movie Channel situation isn't great either. He soon changed his mind about that. But, this is a coup. He promised that he would bring back the old Warner Brothers, and bringing back Tom Cruise to Warner Brothers is a huge coup for Mike DeLuca, Pam Adby, and especially David Zaslav. As I've already said, David Zaslav has made some problematic decisions. There's no question. We can't bury that under the sand. But this is a huge deal. It's not necessarily just that Tom Cruise can make and star in movies that bring big profits and box office to Warner Brothers Discovery. It's the other people in the industry that are going to say, oh my God, Tom Cruise is at Warner Brothers. We're coming to Warner Brothers as well, baby. It's the domino effect that Tom Cruise can bring to Warner Brothers Discovery. But Mick, this is the DC Universe Daily. Why are you talking about Tom Cruise? Because one thing connects to the other. Because the key facet of this deal is, of course, that Tom Cruise, is not just going to be making original pictures at Warner Brothers. He's going to be involved in franchise movies. It's all part of the deal. So I'm not the only one thinking that Tom Cruise could be playing a role maybe in James Gunn's DC Universe. Look, Tom Cruise makes Tom Cruise pictures. I mean, could we see the first written and directed and starring Tom Cruise movie? Because he can direct a movie. He's never directed a movie, but he can. He works with the directors. And I'm hoping that we see the end of Tom Cruise, Daredevil, Tom Cruise, jumping off of things, and maybe his space movie that was being shot in space is not going to happen now. But I want to see the return of Tom Cruise, the actor, not Tom Cruise, the Daredevil. And I think, he's 60 years old now. I think he needs to return to the acting. So this is a huge deal for Warner Brothers Discovery. But could he be involved in DC? Who knows? Tom Cruise is going to have the freedom of Warner Brothers. There's no question about that. So for me, as a Tom Cruise fan and a fan of movies and entertainment, this is a very, very big deal. I didn't see him rejoining WB, but I think it was pretty obvious to anyone after the situation with Mission Impossible last year not making the money that the studio wanted. Maybe him and Paramount agreed it was time for him to have another studio be his home. Now, I don't imagine a scenario where Paramount don't want to work with Tom Cruise. And as I say, it's not an exclusive deal with WB, so he can still work with Paramount. But there's another situation here that people are not really talking about, but I've always got my eyes wide open, as you already know, from our history together as subscriber, viewer, and content creator. I've always got my ear to the ground as well. So a few weeks ago, it was rumoured that Warner Brothers Discovery could merge with Paramount Pictures. Now, it's very, very curious that Tom Cruise would kind of find another home studio. So for me, this could point towards the Paramount WB rumoured merger being more of a reality. So look out for that developing in the coming weeks and months in the next few years as well. I still believe that David Zaslav will either sell WB or merge it with another company because it's an indebted company. It's in financial strife. But WB had quite a good year in 2023. But Mick, those DC movies failed. Yes, those DC movies failed, but Barbie did very well. Wonka is doing very, very well. All of a sudden, there's some pictures of WB doing really well. Better movies are being green-lit. And if you bring Tom Cruise to your studio, there can be no new Hollywood vibe. Tom Cruise wants to work with studios that want to entertain and uplift their audience. Tom Cruise is very much a person for, who loves the film fan, standing outside premieres of his own movies, shaking hands, signing autographs. Public relations is very important for Tom. Public relations with his fans is very, very important to Tom Cruise. So he ain't going to come to a studio that's overly progressive and, let's say, shaves against the grain like Disney. And oh my God, a few years ago, Disney were making big moves. Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, what a huge deal that was. The Fox deal, another groundbreaking deal. It's all come to nothing. They've spent a lot of money, but now Marvel and Lucasfilm and Fox is becoming like a dead weight. The Iger plan isn't working out because buying Marvel, buying Lucasfilm never had any longevity to it. It's all about filmmakers. It's all about personalities. It's all about talent. And the truth is that Disney really don't have any talent there. But there was huge news. If you're a Star Wars fan, let's just divert to that. Because this is the DC Universe Daily, but you're all geeks and nerds and you're going to want to know this. And I don't have the time to do separate videos, unfortunately. Jon Favreau will be directing a Mandalorian and Baby Yoda movie. A Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Now, although I don't have much interest myself in The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, I have been following those series, but the last series wasn't very, very good. I think that Jon Favreau is a really, really good guy, and when he's involved in stuff, it normally ends up being quite good. So I like Jon Favreau. He's a great director. He's a good guy, and I think what happened with Mandalorian Series 3 is that Jon didn't have as much involvement, it was clear to see, in that series creatively. And so for me, it's a little bit more uplifting, but it's also a reaction to the public relations disaster Lucasfilm had last week with the director of the new race, the Rey Skywalker, nightmare that they had last week. The director was talking a lot of shit. Then fans found this old footage of her saying she loves making men feel uncomfortable. It was a disaster. So there's that news for you as well. So yesterday was a huge day of entertainment news. But there's nothing bigger than Tom Cruise rejoining WB. And I know that, David Zaslav holds ambitions to bring Christopher Nolan back to Warner Brothers. He's still working on that deal, a potential deal. For example, imagine Tom Cruise in a Christopher Nolan movie. He's already done a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, this generation's greatest actor. So if he could seal the deal with Tom Cruise, that would be amazing. But Christopher Nolan hasn't agreed to return to WB yet. But Chris has said it's a different studio under Discovery, and what happened in the past with AT&T is water under the bridge. So that's also a possibility. So Is this the DC Universe Daily? So let's discuss a little bit further what this could actually mean for, DC. As I said, when Tom Cruise works in a movie, it becomes his movie. So I believe it will be with an ego like James Gunn. And I think it's good to be overconfident, as long as you're not too overconfident and have an ego when you're working artistically, when you're working, in a business that, you need a big personality. But I think with a big ego like James Gunn, it would be difficult for him to agree for Tom Cruise to join one of his movies, because it becomes a Tom Cruise movie and it becomes a bit of a carnival as well. So I think Tom will be working on his own projects. Could there be a scenario where Tom Cruise gets to choose to play any DC character he wants to play in DC Elseworlds? We've always had this kind of fantasy about Tom Cruise, being Hal Jordan in a Green Lantern movie. There's lots of fan castings, there's lots of fans who have always wanted Tom to play that role. So the potential here is limitless. And all those rumors about Tom, being the next Iron Man for Marvel, I think are out of the window. Even though this is a non-exclusive deal, I don't expect Tom to ever go anywhere near Disney. That ship has sailed. It's all about Warner Brothers. It's going to be his main studio now, but he can go and work for other studios if he wants, but he's just not going to have the time. The reason it's a non-exclusive deal, because Warner Brothers don't have the money to pay Tom Cruise exclusively. And it is better if, both studio and actor-producer, are free to do what they want to do. But it's a huge deal. It's big. It's look, I can't even explain to you how big this is. This helps Warner Brothers as well at Wall Street, because this puts the share price up as well. This is good. Whatever way you spin this, this is great news. There's not a negative situation, and I know there's people who hate Warner Brothers, who want to see Warner Brothers go bankrupt. I personally wouldn't want to see any studio go bankrupt, no matter their sins in the past. It's a very difficult business. Entertainment has become an even more challenging business today, because it's become more polarizing, with more and more progressives running entertainment, with people on social media being able to say whatever they want. And it all becomes very, very polarizing and negative, as we discussed yesterday. But yes, that's the big headline in entertainment. Tom Cruise rejoins Warner Brothers. So he's done this huge deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, and it's for original movies and franchises. So there's a big chance of him being involved in DC. But I think if he was involved with DC, it wouldn't be in the James Gunn project, for example. But as I've said just a minute ago, there's a big chance he could be involved in the future in a DC Elseworlds movie. There's lots of people wanting an Edge of Tomorrow sequel as well. That will be interesting. Not that the first movie did that great in the box office anyway, so I think they'll be looking beyond that. But it's going to be very, very interesting what Tom Cruise decides to do at Warner Brothers. But it's a huge coup for David Zaslav, there's no question. And I think if you're a fan of movies and entertainment, you will be very, very excited about the potential. I would love him to be part of a DC movie, because I think, look, Tom Cruise being involved in DC can only help DC. It can only, give it a leg up. And, first Zaslav puts James Gunn in charge of DC. Now he's done this huge deal to bring Tom Cruise back to WB. These things can only be good, fingers crossed, for the studio. I know not everyone likes James Gunn and wants him to be in control of DC, but he is. Let's see what he does. And James Gunn continues to discuss with fans the future. Peacemaker Series 2, for example, where, one fan suggested that maybe Peacemaker is the only person who remembers the old universe. Gunn said he doesn't want to focus too much on the crossover from universe to universe. And I think that's important here. I agree with James here. I think when we go from like the DCEU to DC Universe, it's going to be like a new shoe. You don't realize you're wearing it because it fits so well. I think people thinking that there used to be another universe isn't the best moves for James Gunn. So let's move from the Tom Cruise news and James Gunn for a moment and discuss Shazam. Because I rewatched the first film, and this morning I rewatched Shazam: Fury of the Gods. And it's amazing how dirty Shazam was done by WB and The Rock. Let's be clear about that. Now, I think the first Shazam's a solid movie, a really, really good movie. Shazam 2 isn't a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not very memorable. The whole problem for both Shazam movies is they navigate too much to the comedy, right? And there are some serious themes in those movies that are tackled in terms of being family without being blood related. And look, as I say, I think they're two solid movies. I don't think you could say they're bad movies. But basically, the Shazam universe is a bit like the Green Lantern Corps. It's a universe within the universe, the Rock of Eternity, Black Adam, the Deadly Sins. There's so much untapped potential in the Shazam universe. Of course, Shazam used to be called Captain Marvel. I think mistake number one they made with the Shazam movies is not embracing the original Captain Marvel concept, which is little kid becomes huge, bulking type of Superman superhero. But in the original idea, he ain't a kid when he becomes Shazam. He's an older guy. That's it. He's not immature. But, you know, Sandberg and Hamada decided to go like the big concept, the Tom Hanks big concept. That never really worked for me. Zachary Levi is a really, really good, productive actor, but he never worked as the character. He works as that Tom Hanks big thing, I agree, but at the end of the day, I think there was so much untapped potential. They did get some things right. They got young Grace as Mary Marvel. I thought she was excellent. And I would have loved to have seen, Grace play Mary Marvel in her own movie. Maybe Grace will play another character in DC Universe because she is a very, very talented young actor. It's like Darla. I love Darla. Darla's adorable, especially in the first movie, right? There were some really, really good things. It's not like these two movies are bad, but the point is, there's so much more potential. And you've got the whole Black Adam thing. For me, I would have done a proper trilogy of Shazam, with Black Adam rising to being the ultimate opponent for Shazam. I would have stuck with Mark Strong's Savannah for the first film. I think he's one of the strongest villains in the DC Extended Universe, and Strong was amazing. And for Savannah to be made into a bad joke in the post-credit scene of Fury of the Gods was very frustrating and disappointing. And I think they should have used him again. I mean, we did see the whole Mr. Mind thing. They could have elaborated on that in the sequel. I mean, look, to me, the female goddess villains, you got Dame Helen Mirren, you got Lucy Liu, they're very good actresses, right? And, Rachel Zegler is a solid actor as well. It's not like any of them did a bad job, but they weren't strong enough. They weren't great villains at the end of the day. It didn't really work for me. As I say, it's an entertaining enough movie, but you forget it as soon as you've seen it. And really, you could have had the rise of Black Adam. You could have had Black Adam in a post-credit scene in the first film, rising up. And then in the second film, maybe that's the kind of Empire Strikes Back movie where, maybe he kills Shazam and Shazam stays dead at the end of that movie. And then you have the big, fuck off fight in the third movie. But as I say, there's so many elements in the Shazam comics, in the early Captain Marvel comics, that you could have embraced in a Shazam trilogy. Instead, they went to the Marvel formula. I've always said the first Shazam are out-Marveled Marvel. And it's a fun, enjoyable movie. But at the end of the day, you know, they could have done so much more with this universe. And as I say, watching both movies in the past couple of days, I do feel that disappointment. And, you know, people were shocked that Shazam! Fury of the Gods didn't make a lot of money. But for me, it's no surprise, you know, it didn't make a lot of money because there's nothing there to scream, I must go and see Shazam! Fury of the Gods. One of the things I noticed, they betrayed everything they set up in the first movie. So if we move away from the idea of creating this epic Shazam universe, which I think they should have embraced the original Captain Marvel comics, at the very least, when you look at the first movie, it dealt with some really good themes and the gags were in the right place. And I think the movie kind of worked for the family audience and it made a slight profit because it was very cheap to make. But they betrayed all those wonderful themes and all those things they set up in the first movie. In the second movie, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Basically, taking Freddie Freeman away from Billy Batson and having him mingle with Rachel's character, I thought was a mistake because they built up such a beautiful friendship that needed to continue in the second movie. There was a lot of themes, you know. I think Mary Marvel needed more screen time. As I say, I think Grace is wonderful as that character, and I think we needed to see more of her. You know, this young woman who's decided not to go to college, they didn't really deal with that much. We saw a scene where she's wearing glasses and she's clearly gone out and got drunk. Maybe we should have seen that. Maybe we should have seen her acting out. That theme seemed to be maybe something they thought about, then cut from the movie. So you can tell she's just sitting there with glasses. Would have been good to actually see that, see her rebelling a little bit. The problem is when you've got all these characters to deal with, you know, a lot of them get done dirty, and a lot of these characters get done dirty. I thought they were better done in the first movie, but of course in this movie as well, you've got them having powers and being superheroes as well. So I think that Shazam! Fury of the Gods doesn't really work, and in the end, you do something that started off so well, really, really dirty. And, you know, this happens a lot with comic book movies. You get filmmakers and studios who don't value the source material. And when you don't value the source material, you do the characters dirty. And I think this is the problem today. There's too many people working in film who think they know better than the people who created the source material. And you don't. And I've said this many times. This is why Wonder Woman 2017 is such a strong movie. Because you've got someone who's written her in the comics, co-writing the story, penning the screenplay. That's important. That's where the credit should really go to for Wonder Woman 2017. Alan Heinberg, the Wonder Woman comic book writer who worked with Zack Snyder on the story and the script. They're the people who should get the big credit. But they were too busy virtue signaling to Patty Jenkins, who really was basically a director in name only, right? She argued about a few things that she didn't want and she wanted other things. But at the end of the day, this is the woman who took the sword and the shield away from Wonder Woman. So I'm not really here to give her much credit as a director. And look at her now. Since Wonder Woman 84, her career is nowhere. And that's not surprising, because I want to see more female directors making movies, but I want to see female directors that deserve to be making movies, right? It should be the same rules for everyone, men and women. If you're a trans director, make a movie. If you're good enough to make a movie, I don't care who you are, what you represent. At the end of the day, it's about servicing me, the customer, with great art and great content and great entertainment. And if you're not good enough to do that, your identity shouldn't be keeping you in a position that you don't deserve to be in. That's my opinion on that. So I just think the whole Shazam thing was a betrayal. And then we go to The Rock as Black Adam. Black Adam's a film that I really, really like. Now, ironically, in 2023, Black Adam did very well with DVD sales, which I find very, very interesting. In fact, apparently, it sold more physical media than Barbie. That's interesting. I think it's in. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I'm reading on the internet, so it must be true. But yeah, people are still watching Black Adam. But here's the harsh truth. Even though I celebrate that news, even though I love Black Adam and I thought The Rock did a great job bringing in some great people, he should never have been involved in Black Adam or the Shazam universe. Somebody else should have been playing Black Adam. And Zachary Levi was speaking a lot about being thwarted at every turn for Shazam! Fury of the Gods. They wanted Black Adam in that movie. They wanted Henry Cavill's Superman in that movie. So I think what Zachary Levi was talking about, being thwarted at every angle by The Rock, who didn't want, Black Adam to be in anything apart from his own movies. And he wanted to control the destiny of that character, but also WB. And I think that Zachary Levi is an honest, straight talker, and he was right. I did feel he was making excuses for the failure of the film, and I think they were. They were making excuses for the failure of the film. Because despite not being able to use Superman, or, not being able to have Black Adam in that movie, which, at the end of the day, Black Adam is a Shazam villain. He should be in those movies. These were ridiculous decisions by WB, but especially The Rock. And I understand Zachary Levi's frustrations, but you still had an opportunity to make a great Shazam movie, and you didn't. You made a mid bargain basement movie. As I say, it's not bad, it's not good, it's not great, but it's watchable, right? I think we can all agree on that. I'm not going to shit on the movie, but it didn't do well, because who really is going to be interested, to be coming into these movies? But I think if you embrace the original Captain Marvel graphic novels, I think people would come in if they saw something to come in for. At the end of the day, Shazam! Fury of the Gods was even more childish and immature than the first one. And people saw this via the marketing. So I hope in James Gunn's DC universe that he understands how important the source material is. And, I don't think, it's interesting, isn't it? Will Levi return as Shazam in DC universe? He's got a very, very close relationship with Peter Safran, the co-CEO of DC Studios. So we'll see what happens there. I'm not against it, but I don't think we need any more Shazam movies. A Zachary Levi cameo, I'm fine with. Asher Angel cameos, I'm fine with. But yeah, we don't want to see any more Shazam movies. Captain Marvel, look, the original Captain Marvel idea was the best idea. And as I say, it has so many amazing facets, but the best facet of either of those Shazam movies was Mark Strong as Dr. Sivana. His whole arc was brilliant when he goes into his father's office and chucks his brother out the window so ruthlessly. The guy was a brilliant villain. I think he's just as good as Shannon Zod in a more lighter way. And people may laugh at that, but I think he was a very, very good villain. And in fact, that's exactly what the Black Adam movie was missing. And The Rock didn't think about this. They should have got Sivana out of jail. Why not? Have Sivana as a villain in Black Adam. That would have been more interesting than the villain. I think that's the one problem with Black Adam. They had a villain problem. Everything else was great. The Justice Society of America, Dr. Fate, Hawkman, all of that was great. Everyone. But the villain just wasn't strong enough. I think Sivana being in that Black Adam movie would have connected Shazam and Black Adam. And that's one of the things that The Rock didn't want to do. Connect the universes. And that's a problem. Because then when he was promoting Black Adam, he was talking about building out, Black Adam into the DC universe. And, he worked so hard to bring Henry Cavill's Superman into that universe when his own character, Shazam, should have been part of that universe. So pot and kettle springs to mind, if you ask me. When you have too much ego in entertainment or in any business, you damage what you were doing. The Rock is a passionate DC fan. He loves Black Adam. And at the end of the day, it's a shame because there's a lot of good things about Black Adam. There's a lot of good things about Shazam and Shazam Fury of the Gods. But at the end of the day, especially the Shazam movies, they just weren't good enough to hold a huge audience. And the potential was lost to do something from the source material.